the amazingly talented Vincent Laforet was with me on my show recently, and he said it's often about the photos you don't take as much as the photos you do take. I asked him to explain that.
This image here speaks directly to what you take and what you don't take. This image of the horses running up the hill, that was about a 5 to 10 minute period in the entire day where the sun came out, right? So
Wow.
for the entire almost 10 hours I was waiting there. There was torrential downpour the entire day. And, you can definitely work a scene when there's rain, but I knew the client wasn't going to use a rainy shot. It was for a positive launch of a camera, right? So instead of wasting my energy all day shooting in circles around rain, which sometimes you need to do, and sometimes you'll discover some great imagery, for sure. I just knew, because again, I'm thinking about this, that my client's never going to use that.
Yeah.
So just rested and I waited and I sat down with them indoors out of the rain, and we chatted and we bonded, right, as human beings, so that when this glimpse of light came through, literally for less than 10 minutes in the entire day, we knew exactly where to go and what to do. We had a plan. And I said, well, the moment we find some sun or light, let's go right towards it. And when we saw this, I said, listen, guys, go up that hill, and I'm going to go down, stay here with a long lens, and I'm going to try to superimpose you with a setting sun, right? And we had a plan. And the point is, I didn't waste my energy all day. If you go to the next image, this is the Paniolo cowboy story in Hawaii. And you can keep going. The horse was the first frame I made when the sun came out, right? It's a gorgeous color, but it took discipline to wait that out. Sometimes you have to work it. Sometimes you need to push further and discover something completely new. But sometimes you know what your deliverable is, which is my fancy way to say, deliverable is what you deliver to the client. Yeah. And this is the launch of the 60D or something, really way back in the day.
Uh-huh.
We had, you don't ever go shoot a commercial job in Hawaii in January. It's suicidal because it rains almost every single day. So you end up sitting on your hands waiting, but it's worth it because when the sun does come out, these colors are so, the ground is so rich from all the rainfall, and the colors are so spectacular that it rewards you. So back to your original question, when you're looking around, so I'll tackle it a different way. I can't tell you how often I see people jump out of cars and start shooting the most random stuff.
Yeah.
And I asked myself, and I literally so often said, what in the world are they shooting? Because I can look up 5 degrees to the left or 10 degrees up and go, there's an amazing tree there, or there's an amazing juxtaposition of geometry, or look at the light that's screaming off the sky, and this guy's shooting his shoes. Now, I respect people. I don't walk up to them because it would be incredibly rude to say that.
Hey, dude, point your camera over there.
Yeah, for 30 years, I've been taking pictures to make a living and to work for commercial clients, right? So I'm obviously going to have a different approach and see different things. More importantly, I respect the person's right to photograph whatever they want. This is supposed to be fun. But I can't tell you how often I see people shooting, and I go literally from 100 feet away, just pan to the left a little bit, or take 2 steps forward, because you do it so often. And what I'm identifying on my end, at least, is how I would approach a subject, right? And trying to share that with them, albeit not really showing it to them. But the point is, you're always looking. So even when I'm walking around without a camera, I'm still looking. I'm still enjoying. That's why I use my iPhone a lot. And when I see someone else shooting, as someone who's done a lot of teaching, I have this natural tendency to want to share with them and say, just take a step forward, or, go a little wider, or go to the left a little bit, because that huge light pole that you have in the back of your frame is killing you.
Yeah.
And I guess that's what happens when you're slightly obnoxious and they've been doing this for 30 years. But at least I don't say that to them openly unless they ask. The idea is, if you waste your time on the mediocre image, you're never going to find the great one. And the rules that I have are very simple. If I've seen a photograph before that I have shot or someone else has shot, or if I've shot it myself, I move on. Meaning, once I capture that perfect sunset shot with the sun hitting the horizon, that's just simply composed, I've done that. I check mark that. Right. And the next time I show up to a sunset, I will study the way the sun reflects on the water, or the way the light is emitted, or something else. Yeah. I'll do. And I think that's how you push yourself, is to refuse to repeat yourself. That's very integral to what I do. Like, this is tilt shift photography during the Olympics, and the idea was, how there's 700 credentialed photographers in the Olympics. How do you stand out? What do you do that's so different? Because you'll find yourself literally surrounded by 100 to 200 photographers to your left and your right. Every single person has the exact same lens and camera.
Right.
It's either a Nikon or a Canon, and we're all on 400-2.8s or whatever it is. And you have to ask yourself, you look at the work of David Burnett, for example, who goes out there with Graflex cameras and film cameras and odd lenses. He looks like a kook to most people, or an anachronism, who's never learned the beauty, the easiness of digital photography. The reality is he's absolutely kicking everyone's butt because his approach is so different. He knows frankly, I'm sure he'd tell you, he probably can't compete with a lot of the Wire and Sports Illustrated photographers who do nothing but shoot on an 800 millimeter all day. And they are like athletes, right? They are the best of the best in the world. So why compete with those women and gentlemen? It's foolish. So I'm going to pick a different lens or a different angle. And I think it's very important for everyone to try to do that. You may not work in groups, but my rule was always, if I had a pile of people around me, or more than one or two people where I was shooting, I would just move. It didn't matter what the image was. It was just an instinctual thing at the New York Times, is if someone else was standing where I was standing, I went somewhere else. Unless it was...
Makes sense. And you, I believe you were one of the early adopters on the whole tilt shift movement, right? I mean, you kind of started, as I recall.
Well, it's, you got to be careful when you say, because you're accurate in that. I think in 2006, I was one of the 2 or 3 photographers that year, looking back at it, that shot tilt shift at the time. Like, no one was shooting it.
Yeah.
But it would be unfair to say we did anything in terms of inventing it, because it'd been around since forever. And
well, sure, it was part of the Graflex and the 4x5s
right.
and whatnot.
We may have revived it to some degree, because an anecdote is, when I borrowed the tilt shift from Canon, I used to be an explorer of light with Canon, which means I could borrow gear from their CPS program back in the day. They had like shelves full of these lenses. And after I did a story on tilt shift that appeared in the New York magazine, I called to borrow it again. The guy's like, "You did it. Like, they're not here. They're all checked out. Everyone's borrowing them now." They used to have a literal, quarter inch of dust on them because no one ever touched them. And now they're all out, all 50 of them. So, and that comes out of, for me, it came out of curiosity. I shot an image of some jets in Teterboro, and I was in the helicopter, and I'd shot the 24-70 for so long. I said, well, what would it look like with a tilt shift lens? Everyone's goal should be to become a quote-unquote master, to master every single rule. And, just like a musician knows his or her scales, or, an ice skater knows how to skate first in a straight line.
Yeah.
You master that, and you do, jumps and pirouettes, whatever. And then you break every single one of those rules. That's when you start producing exciting work that no one's seen before. Right. Stuff I showed you earlier of the long exposures at night, no one's ever done that to my knowledge, like that. And you don't get there. Some of you might get there by being lucky. I've gotten there out of sheer exhaustion in the Olympics, where I put a wrong setting on my camera. And instead of shooting at a 500th of a second, I'm shooting a 1/5 of a second.
Oh,
and
wow.
I'm getting incredible streaks, and next thing you know, the entire row of people, photographers in the Olympics, are shooting at a 1/5 of a second because it looks cool, right? But it doesn't always come to you as this inspiration. If you go to collections again and go to urban, that's a little different. You don't always, like the next image, this is an image of, the first one is, exactly, there you go. This is a fisheye lens of New York City. Yeah. And it's me holding a fisheye lens underneath the skid of the helicopter. It's not a very common image, or it wasn't back then, to a large degree because people didn't have access to this lens. And then, of course, people didn't think to put it at the end of a monopod with some safety cables. And at the time, it was relatively new. This is a digital camera, to be able to plug your camera in via a Firewire cable into your laptop. Because if you think about it, you can't compose this image when you're holding the camera, I would say 6 feet below your feet or your eye. So about 6 feet lower than where my eye is.
Wow.
Yeah, monopod. But I'm able to compose using technology to get an image that's very different looking. And that's the sun setting on the Hudson River on top, and that's the Empire State Building in the middle of New York.
It's always great having you guys with us. It means so much to me to have your support. Hey, listen, if you haven't already done it, please subscribe, enable the bell, like the video, share with your friends. We want to get these videos out to the whole world. Leave your comments. I read every one of them. I try to respond to them all. And listen, stay safe, stay well, and remember to get out and capture your own images of life.